They threw an entire baby shower for a man who did not respect the mother of his unborn child enough to even show up on time, and what Blueface did instead is so bold, so cold, and so calculated that even his most loyal defenders have gone completely silent tonight. Because while Nivea was standing there pregnant, glowing, waiting on him at a celebration that he himself paid for, Blueface was somewhere else entirely, with the one woman the entire internet has begged him to never go back to, Chrisean Rock. Again. On the same weekend. And if you think that is just another episode of the messiest soap opera on the internet, you are not paying attention, because what happened at that front door, on camera, in front of the world, tells you everything about who Blueface really is, who Chrisean has become, and why Nivea is standing in the middle of a storm she cannot even see yet. Now before we take this thing apart piece by piece, understand something. This is not just gossip. This is a case study in how one man runs an entire roster of women like a franchise, how loyalty gets rewarded with humiliation, and how a soul tie can drag a woman who is finally doing well straight back into the fire. So stay locked in, because by the end of this, you are going to understand the blueprint, and you are going to see exactly why everybody in this situation is losing, even the ones who think they are winning. So let's set the scene properly. Nivea and Blueface had the baby shower. Mind you, this is supposed to be her day. This is the moment where a woman carrying a man's child gets to feel like the center of his world for once, and for Nivea, who has been playing her position, staying quiet, doing everything she thinks a woman is supposed to do to secure the spot. This day was supposed to be the coronation. The proof that she won. The moment she could post and say, "Look, he chose me." And here is what actually happened. Blueface showed up late. To his own child's celebration. Late. And the reason he was late is the part that should make everybody sit up straight, because Blueface was not stuck in traffic. He was not handling business. He was with Chrisean. The same Chrisean who had just spent weeks plugged back into her church, doing well, getting herself together, looking like she had finally escaped the cycle. The same Chrisean who had been calling this man every name in the book not long ago, telling anybody who would listen that he has no emotions, that he is dead inside, that she was done. And now here she is, folded right back into the picture, and Blueface is so wrapped up in it that he cannot even make it on time to the baby shower of the woman currently carrying his child. Let's be honest about what that communicates, because Blueface communicates through action better than any statement he could ever release. He paid for the event. Sure, he arranged things. Fine. But when it came time to actually stand there and honor Nivea's moment, Blueface's body was somewhere else and his attention was with Chrisean, and no amount of money spent on balloons and catering covers that up. Money is the cheapest language this man speaks. Presence is the currency he refuses to pay, and Nivea found that out in front of everybody. Now, here's where the situation goes from messy to cinematic, because Chrisean did not just pull Blueface away for a few hours and call it a day. No. Chrisean decided to make a statement, and the way she made it is going to be studied in the halls of internet chaos for years. Chrisean popped up. At the house. Around the very window of the baby shower, and the clips that came out of it are some of the wildest pieces of footage this entire saga has ever produced. We are going to walk through every beat of it, because every second of that footage is a confession, whether the people in it realize it or not. So here is what the cameras caught, and shout out to the channels that surfaced these clips, because they are about to be dissected frame by frame. Chrisean pulled up to Blueface's house, and from the very first second of the footage, you can tell this is not a visit, this is a raid. She is at that door pulling on it, yanking on it, demanding entry like she still pays the mortgage on the place, and the energy inside that house shifts instantly. You can hear the panic in real time. Somebody inside yells that they are under attack, and honestly, when you listen to the audio, it is genuinely hard to tell if that was a joke or genuine fear. And the fact that it could be either one tells you everything about what daily life around Chrisean and Blueface actually looks like. And then comes the moment the internet is going to be quoting for months, because Blueface Camp looked at the situation and produced the single worst cover story in the history of cover stories. It is the Mailman. That is the explanation. The Mailman. Now think about the audacity of that for a second. Chrisean is standing outside Blueface's own house, in the very same window of time as his baby shower with Nivea, and the best anybody inside that house can manufacture is the Mailman. She asks who is at the door. They say the Mailman. She demands they open the door. They insist it is the Mailman. The back and forth is almost comedic until you realize what is actually unfolding, which is that Blueface is standing inside his own home, hiding behind a fictional postal worker. while the mother of one child bangs on his door and the mother of his next child sits across town at a baby shower he has not even arrived at yet. And Chrisean, to her credit or to her detriment depending on where you stand, is not buying one single syllable of it. She keeps pressing. She demands the door get opened, over and over, louder each time. She wants to know who he was just talking to. She starts asking where her phone is. The whole exchange has this frantic, scrambling energy, like watching people destroy evidence before the authorities walk through the door, and Blueface is right there in the middle of it, trying to manage a 5-alarm fire that he personally lit, with his own decisions, on the weekend of his own child's celebration. And here is the question you should be asking yourself right now, because it is the question this entire video is built on. If Blueface is willing to lie this badly, this publicly, on camera, on baby shower day, what is he doing when there are no cameras at all? Now here is the detail from that footage that nobody is talking about nearly enough, and it might be the most psychologically revealing moment of the entire day. In the middle of all that chaos, in the middle of the banging and the lying and the mailman routine, the energy inside that house suddenly flips. Just like that. No transition, no cooling off period, no apology tour. Chrisean goes from demanding the door get ripped off its hinges to telling this man, and I need you to sit with this, that he is the best thing that ever happened to her. And Blueface tells her the exact same thing right back. They trade I love yous. In the middle of a raid. On baby shower day. With Nivea across town cutting cake. Understand what you just watched, because it is the entire story in miniature. That is not a relationship. That is a chemical cycle. That is two people who can travel from warfare to worship in under 60 seconds, because the attachment between Chrisean and Blueface has nothing to do with peace and everything to do with intensity. Chrisean does not want calm from Blueface. Blueface does not want calm from Chrisean. They want the spike. The adrenaline. The feeling of being so deep inside each other's chaos that nothing else in the world even registers. And that is exactly why every other woman in Blueface orbit is competing in a game that was rigged long before she ever agreed to play. And notice the other micro moment buried in that footage, because it matters. At one point Blueface actually checks the girl standing near Chrisean for getting too loose with her commentary, and Chrisean's posture in that moment is fascinating. She stands there so confident, so secure, like she already knows Blueface is going to protect her position. And she is right. He does. Because in the unwritten hierarchy of Blueface's world, and we are going to map that hierarchy in full before this video is over, Chrisean holds a rank that no baby shower, no amount of money, and no new pregnancy has ever been able to touch. She is not a guest in Blueface's life. She is a load-bearing wall. And everybody else, including the woman currently carrying his child, is decoration that can be swapped out the moment the main act walks back through the door. And if you think the door footage was the end of it, then you have not been paying attention to who Chrisean actually is, because Chrisean does not just show up. Chrisean documents. After everything went down, she got in front of her own camera and delivered her version of the day, and her version is a masterclass in unbothered confidence, delivered with the energy of a woman who knows exactly what she did and is genuinely proud of it. She said it all herself. She pulled up with him. She dropped them off. She knocked on the door. She repeats it in her own retelling like it is a badge of honor, telling people to smile, asking where their mama is, where their family is, converting the entire confrontation into content in real time. That is a specific kind of fearlessness, and honestly, it is the exact quality that keeps Blueface magnetized to her no matter how many times he tries to build a normal life with somebody else. But then Chrisean says the part that should have been the headline on every blog in the country, and somehow it slid under the radar. According to Chrisean's own mouth, she was never going to that baby shower. That was not her event, that was not her day, and she could not have cared less that it was supposed to be somebody else's moment. She went to the house instead. And Blueface was late to that baby shower, she says, because of her. Because she had to handle a one-on-one situation with Blue. She announces it plainly, proudly, without a shred of hesitation, like she is reading off an itinerary. And I need you to understand the weight of that confession. When the woman a man cannot quit is bragging, on camera, that she is the reason he was late to his own baby shower, that is not just he. That is a power ranking being published in real time. That is Chrisean looking directly into the lens and informing Nivea, informing the internet, informing the entire roster, exactly who runs Blueface's schedule, Blueface's attention, and ultimately Blueface's life. And the scariest part for everybody else involved is that the footage backs her up. He really was late. He really was with her. The receipts and the confession match perfectly. Now let's talk about Nivea, because Nivea is the most tragic figure in this entire story, and the tragedy is that she cannot see it yet. Here is a woman who is pregnant, who watched everything that happened between Blueface and Chrisean play out in public for years, who saw the chaos, the arrests, the screaming matches, the tattoos, the breakups, the reunions, all of it, and still looked at that situation and said, I can fix this. I can be the one. I can play my role well enough that he finally picks me for real. And so Nivea has been doing everything by what she thinks the manual says. She stays calm. She stays available. She does her little rituals, her little routines, whatever she believes is going to lock this man in spiritually, and she waits for her moment. The baby shower was supposed to be that moment. And Blueface spent the hours before it with Chrisean, showed up late, and let the whole world watch the woman he cannot quit brag about being the reason. And here's what makes it painful to watch. Nivea knows. That is the part that breaks the whole fantasy. She knows about Chrisean. She knows about the history, the soul tie, the revolving door. She has watched Blueface hang out with Chrisean and Junior, go to the games, be seen everywhere together, and she has absorbed all of it quietly because she believes endurance is a strategy. She thinks that if she just outwaits the storm will pass and she will be the last one standing. But that is not how this works, and it has never been how this works, because Blueface is not a storm that passes. Blueface is the weather system. The women rotate. The chaos stays. And every woman who enters his orbit believing she will be the exception becomes the next case study in why there are no exceptions. Think about what Nivea called the baby shower. She called it her day. She framed it like a wedding, like a coronation, like the day Blueface publicly certified her position. And meanwhile, the man who was supposed to be honoring her day was getting detained across town by the woman he has never once been able to fully walk away from. He paid for everything, yes. He arranged the whole event, yes. But Blueface paying for something and Blueface caring about something are two completely different transactions, and Nivea has not yet learned how to read the difference between them. Money is how Blueface keeps women stationary. Attention is how Blueface tells you who actually matters. And on baby shower day, the money went to Nivea and the attention went to Chrisean. That split right there is the entire truth of his heart, spelled out in a language Nivea refuses to read. And this is where we have to get into the psychology of Blueface himself, because when you stack up years of this behavior, a pattern emerges that is impossible to unsee. Blueface does not fall in love with women. Blueface falls in love with reactions. Watch his history carefully, and you will notice that the women who hold his attention the longest are never the calm ones, never the stable ones, never the ones with a plan and a boundary. They are the ones who create spectacle, the ones who fight for him publicly, the ones who show heartbreak in high definition. Chrisean fights on his porch, and he cannot stay away. Another woman cries online, and suddenly he is back in her comments. The mess is the magnet. Emotional distress is the fuel. And a woman who simply behaves, waits patiently, and keeps things peaceful gives him absolutely nothing to feed on, which is exactly why Nivea could do everything right for the next 10 years and still lose to a woman who kicks his door in. There is a word for people who are energized by other people's pain, who orchestrate triangles, who make multiple women compete for a prize that does not actually exist. And I am not a doctor. I am not diagnosing anybody on this channel, but I will say this much. When a man keeps a roster of women in a permanent state of uncertainty, never confirming anyone's position, never letting anyone feel secure, never letting anyone fully leave either, that is not confusion. That is a system. Confusion is an accident. What Blueface runs is architecture. Every woman knows about the others. Every woman stays anyway. Every woman believes she is the favorite. And he floats above all of it, never committing, never clarifying, never paying the emotional bill, because the moment any of them felt truly secure, the competition would end, and the competition is the entire point. And if Blueface were honest, truly honest, for one single day, the kindest thing he could ever do for these women is stand in front of a camera and say exactly what his behavior already screams. Tell them all, look, I am seeing all of you. I care about all of you. None of you are the only one, and decide for yourselves if that is a life you want. At least then everyone would be making an informed choice. But he will never do that because informed women walk away, and Blueface's entire ecosystem depends on women who are just uncertain enough to keep trying. Hope is the leash. He holds it. And every woman in the picture is wearing it, including the one who thinks she is holding everyone else's. And that brings us to Chrisean, because Chrisean's part in this story is the one that genuinely hurts to watch if you have been following her journey with any kind of empathy. Remember where Chrisean was just a short while ago? She was plugged into her church. She was showing up with a different energy. She was posting different, moving different, talking different, and for the first time in a long time, it looked like the cycle had actually been broken. People were rooting for her. The comment sections, which are usually war zones, were full of people saying she finally made it out. And then Blueface reappeared, and within what felt like days, Chrisean folded. All that progress, all that distance, all that healing, traded in for a front row seat at the games and a spot back inside the exact chaos she escaped. And the word everybody keeps using for it is soul tie, and honestly, for once, the internet might be using the right word, because what else explains it? What else explains a woman who called this man emotionless, who told the world he had nothing inside him, turning around and showing up at his door like she owns the deed to the property? A soul tie does not respond to logic. It does not respond to public embarrassment, to baby showers, to other women, to church, to prayers. It only responds to proximity. And Blueface understands that about Chrisean better than anybody alive, which is exactly why he never fully closes that door. He does not have to chase Chrisean. He just has to exist near her long enough, and the tie does the rest. But here is the layer that makes Chrisean's position even more dangerous than Nivea's, and it is a layer almost nobody discusses. Chrisean is not just emotionally tied to this man. She is operationally useful to him. Watch how they move when they are aligned. They have their heads together. They scheme together. She is the one willing to do the dirty work, willing to pop up, willing to bang on doors, willing to say the things on camera that he would never say himself. She is not just an ex. She is an enforcer. And a man like Blueface keeps an enforcer close for the same reason he keeps the roster confused, because chaos deployed at the right moment is control. When Chrisean pops up at that house, every other woman in his life gets the message without him having to send a single text. She is the alarm system. And she does the job for free, proudly, thinking it makes her the queen, when really it just makes her the loudest employee on a payroll that pays in nothing. Now, there's one more piece of this puzzle that explains why this bond is essentially unbreakable, and his name is Junior. Chrisean Jr. Because here is the reality that sits underneath every single headline in this saga. Blueface has accepted that child as his son. Publicly. Repeatedly. He spends time with Junior. He watches him grow. He checks on his progress. He positions himself in that little boy's life in a way that goes far beyond obligation, and whether you think that is genuine love or strategic positioning, the effect is identical. Junior is the permanent bridge between Chrisean and Blueface, and as long as that bridge stands, no other woman will ever have a clear path to this man. Nivea can have a whole baby. She can have 10. She will still be standing on the other side of a connection that was cemented the day Blueface looked at Junior and decided that child was his. And let me say the quiet part out loud, because the streets have been saying it for months, and it deserves to be addressed head-on. The resemblance conversation around Junior and Ronnie has been everywhere, and the resemblance is real, and everybody sees it, and I have broken that down in previous videos, so I am not going to relitigate all of it here. But here is what matters for this story. Even if every rumor on the internet were true, even if every side-by-side photo told the exact story people think it tells, it would change nothing about the structure of this situation, because Blueface has already made his decision. He claims Junior. He shows up for Junior. And a man who has publicly claimed a child does not get to unclaim him without detonating his own image, which means Chrisean holds a permanent key to Blueface's life that no baby shower, no pregnancy, and no amount of good behavior from any other woman can ever duplicate. And that is the checkmate that Nivea is sitting in the middle of without even realizing the game ended before it started. Because think about the math. Nivea's leverage is a baby that has not been born yet. Chrisean's leverage is a child who is already here, already claimed, already bonded, already photographed on this man's hip. Nivea is fighting for a position that is already occupied, with ammunition that has not even arrived yet, against a woman who will literally show up at the front door and dare the entire house to open it. That is not a fair fight. That was never going to be a fair fight. And the only person who benefits from two women fighting over his attention is the man at the center of it, which is exactly how Blueface designed it. And now we have to talk about the comment that may have detonated Nivea's entire position without her even knowing it, because Nivea is not as innocent in this saga as her quiet act suggests. Nivea has been taking her own shots. And one of them crossed a line that you simply do not cross around Blueface, because Nivea reportedly went after Chrisean's child. She called Chrisean names tied to that baby's condition, went at a child, while being pregnant herself. And I do not care what side of this you're on, that is foul. That is the kind of comment that does not just start drama, it starts wars, because there are certain things you do not say about people's kids, and there are certain men you definitely do not say them around, and Blueface is at the top of that list. Because here is what Nivea fundamentally does not understand about the man she is trying to lock down. Blueface does not punish people with arguments. He punishes people with attention. The moment he heard Nivea talking reckless about Chrisean and Junior, he did not yell, he did not post, he did not argue. He simply redirected his time. Suddenly he is at the games with Chrisean and Junior. Suddenly Chrisean is pulling up to the house. Suddenly Nivea's baby shower is missing its guest of honor while he handles a one-on-one with the exact woman Nivea insulted. That is not a coincidence. That is a sentence being carried out. In Blueface world, disrespect does not get confronted, it gets corrected, and the correction is always the same. He makes you watch him choose the person you hate most. And Nivea, pregnant, glowing, standing at her own shower waiting on a man who never truly arrived, is living inside that correction right now. And the cruel irony is that Nivea plays messy too, she just hides her hands. Chrisean is loud with hers. Chrisean will tell you to your face, on camera, exactly what she did and why. Nivea operates in the shadows, the subliminals, the quiet little comments she thinks will not travel. But everything travels to Blueface. He hears all of it. And the difference between the two women is that Chrisean's chaos reads as passion to him, while Nivea's reads as betrayal, because Chrisean fights for her position in the open and Nivea tries to secure hers by tearing down a child behind closed doors. One of those strategies keeps a man like this addicted. The other one gets you stood up at your own baby shower. And the results, ladies and gentlemen, are right there in the footage. And while we are mapping this roster, we have to give credit where the internet always gives credit, and that is to Jaidyn, because Jaidyn is the one woman in this entire ecosystem who cracked the code. Jaidyn does her. That has always been the report, and it has never once changed. She does not pop up at houses. She does not brag about making him late. She does not get into comment wars. She handles her business, secures what she needs for her kids, and stays completely out of the blast radius. And the result is that Jaidyn is the only one who never has to be discussed in videos like this as a victim, because Jaidyn understood early what Nivea still refuses to learn. You cannot win Blueface. You can only manage your distance from him. The moment you start competing for the throne, you have already lost it. And look at the contrast, because the contrast is the lesson. Jaidyn treated the situation like a business arrangement with boundaries, and she walks through this entire never-ending saga with her dignity intact and her name out of the mud. Nivea treated it like a romance with a finish line, and she spent her coronation day waiting on a man who was across town with his ex Chrisean, treated it like a war. And she won the battle at the front door while losing every piece of the peace she spent months building at church. Same man. 3 strategies. And the only one that works is the one where you stop trying to be chosen. Let that marinate, because it applies far beyond this situation. The only winning move in a rigged game is to stop playing. Everybody else in this story is still sitting at the table, convinced the next hand is theirs. And that is really the tragedy at the center of all this entertainment, because when you strip away the clips, the memes, the mailman excuse, and the screaming at the door, what is left is a group of women who are all bleeding from the same wound. Hurt people hurt people. That is not a slogan, it is the operating system of this entire situation. Chrisean is hurt, so she hurts Nivea's moment. Blueface is hurt, so he hurts every woman who trusts him. Nivea is hurt, so she went after a child. It is a circle of pain with no exit ramp, and every single person in it believes they are the one sane passenger on a bus that has been on fire for years. And the driver? The driver is smiling, because a bus full of people fighting each other never has time to look at who is behind the wheel. Now here is the revelation that ties this entire story together, so lean in, because this is the part most commentary channels are too distracted by the screaming clips to notice. The baby shower was never the story. The door footage was never the story. The mailman was definitely never the story. The story is the timing. Blueface let Chrisean back in at the exact moment Nivea was at her most vulnerable, at her most visible, at her most emotionally invested. That is not sloppy. That is not a man losing control of his schedule. That is a precision instrument. Because now Nivea knows, in the most public way possible, on the biggest day of her pregnancy, exactly where she ranks. And a woman who knows where she ranks and stays anyway is a woman who will accept absolutely anything going forward. The bar has not been lowered. The bar has been removed entirely, and Blueface did it without saying a single word. That is the chess move underneath the chaos. Every woman in his life just watched him get caught, on camera, lying about the mailman, late to his own baby shower, with Chrisean bragging about it within hours. And what is the consequence? There is none. Nobody left. Nobody will leave. Chrisean came back after swearing he had no emotions. Nivea is going to finish her pregnancy and stand beside him anyway. The roster absorbed the most humiliating news cycle yet, and the roster remains fully intact. And when you realize that, you realize the baby shower was not a disaster for Blueface at all. It was a demonstration. A live, televised proof to every woman in his orbit that there is no line he can cross that will cost him any of them. And once a man has proven that to himself, the behavior does not get better. It gets bolder. This was not the peak. This was the trailer. And mark my words on where this goes next, because the pattern has never once deviated. Nivea is going to have her moment of clarity, probably around the birth, where she draws a line and swears she is done being embarrassed. Chrisean is going to sense that line being drawn and treat it like a starting pistol, because Chrisean does not respect boundaries, she collects them. And Blueface is going to stand in the middle of the collision he personally engineered, say absolutely nothing of substance, and let the two of them burn each other down while he plans the next chapter. We have watched this exact episode before. Different women, same script, same ending. The only question left is whether Nivea and Chrisean eventually figure out that they are not rivals at all. They are co-workers, both employed by the same man, in the same department, doing the same job, fighting over a promotion that does not exist. And I want to be real for a second, because beneath all the entertainment value, there is actual advice buried in this story for Nivea if she is willing to hear it. If I were in her position, I would not be able to sleep at night next to a man who moves like this. I would go to my own home, lock every door, and restructure the entire arrangement. When that baby comes, the terms need to change completely. He comes to your house to see the child. The child does not go to his house. Not while the revolving door is spinning, not while surprise guests can pop up mid-visit, not while the environment around him is this unstable. That is not bitterness, that is parenting. A newborn cannot speak, cannot defend itself, cannot tell you what it saw or who was there, and any mother in this situation owes her child a perimeter that Blueface has spent years proving he will never build on his own. And this is the part where I need to hear from you, because this story has layers that reasonable people see completely differently. So tell me in the comments, and do not just say team this or team that, actually explain your answer. Number 1, was the mailman excuse the single worst cover story ever caught on camera, or was it actually a smart play to avoid a bigger blow-up? Number 2, does Nivea have any real path to changing Blueface, or is she already past the point where leaving quietly is her only win? And number 3, the big one. Is Chrisean the villain of this story, the victim of it, or somehow both at the same time? Because where you land on that third question says everything about how you see this entire saga. Because here is my honest take after watching every clip and every confession from this weekend. There are no winners in this footage. Chrisean won the day and lost her progress. Nivea got the party and lost the man for the hours that mattered. Blueface kept all of them and proved, once again, that keeping them is the entire game. And the only people truly winning are the ones watching from a safe distance, taking notes on exactly what never to tolerate, never to chase, and never to become. Sometimes the most valuable thing a public figure can give you is a warning. This weekend, whether he meant to or not, Blueface gave everybody one. And let's zoom all the way out, because the reason this story refuses to die, the reason every one of these episodes pulls millions of eyes, is that this is not really a story about Blueface, Chrisean, and Nivea anymore. It is a mirror. Everybody watching knows a Blueface. Everybody watching has been a Nivea at least once, standing in their own baby shower moment, waiting on somebody who is never coming, telling themselves that patience is the same thing as progress. And if we are being honest, a whole lot of people watching have been a Chrisean too, pulled back into something they had already survived because the pull was stronger than the lesson. That is why the clips go viral every time. It is not the celebrity of it. It is the recognition. The audience is not watching strangers. The audience is watching their own history with better camera quality. And that is exactly why the people at the center of these stories never escape them, because the audience's recognition is also the audience's demand. Every view, every comment, Every share tells Blueface that the chaos is the product, and a man who understands attention the way he does is never going to voluntarily shut down his most profitable factory. Think about it. When has peace ever trended for him? When has stability ever made a headline? The internet does not reward Blueface for growth. The internet rewards Blueface for exactly what happened this weekend. And as long as the check clears for the mess will keep getting manufactured, bigger, louder, and closer to the women and children who never asked to be content. Junior did not ask for any of this. Nivea's unborn child did not ask for any of this. And those two kids are going to grow up able to watch every second of it forever in high definition. Sit with that. So no, I am not going to pretend this is just entertainment with no real stakes, because there are children attached to every chapter of this saga now. And the adults in the room, all of them, are so busy fighting over a man who refuses to be caught that nobody seems to be asking the only question that matters. What does the next 10 years of this look like for the kids? Because if the pattern holds, and it has never once not held, this weekend was not an event. It was an origin story. The first chapter of a cycle that the next generation is going to inherit whether anybody likes it or not. And cycles do not break themselves. Somebody has to stop reaching for the door. So here is where we land, back at the very place we started, because remember what opened this entire breakdown. They threw an entire baby shower for a man who did not respect the moment enough to arrive on time, and everything that happened after that, the door, the mailman, the confession, the games, the comments about a child. All of it was just the fine print on a truth that was visible from the very first frame. Blueface is not confused. Blueface is not torn. Blueface is running a system, a profitable, self-sustaining, camera-ready system, and every woman in his orbit is both its fuel and its audience at the same time. Chrisean knows the system and loves the keys it gives her. Nivea knows the system and keeps pretending it is a home. And Jaidyn, the only one who opted out of the competition, remains the only one who never has to clean up after it. And as for what comes next, I will tell you exactly what to watch for. Watch what happens when Nivea's baby arrives, because that is the moment this entire board gets flipped. Watch whether Chrisean escalates when she realizes she is no longer the only one with a child tying her to this man. Watch whether Blueface finally gets forced to say out loud what his behavior has been screaming for years, or whether he finds a brand new way to keep every single one of them exactly where he wants them. And watch the door. Always watch the door, because if this weekend taught us anything, the truth in this saga never arrives through an announcement. It arrives uninvited, pulling on the handle, while somebody inside swears it is just the mailman. I want your takes in the comments, and do not hold back. Whose move shocked you most this weekend? Blueface, Chrisean's, or Nivea's? And be honest, did the mailman excuse make you laugh, or did it make you sad for everybody inside that house? If you made it to this point, you already know the deal. Subscribe, tap the bell, and do not even think about leaving yet, because my full breakdown of the Junior and Ronnie resemblance situation is up next, and after everything you just heard, you are going to see that video with completely new eyes. That one changes the board. Stay safe, stay sane, protect your peace. See you on the next one.